everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Nodes. And today we are going to be talking about Ashes of Creation. Surprise, surprise, but actually their successful Kickstarter, which just ended, blown out of the water. They came in with a goal of $750,000, and they end with a total, yes, this is their total, $3,271,809 raised by 19,576 backers. Completely mind blown out of the water, way past their goals. We're going to talk a little bit about why I think that probably happened. And I have some screens for people who are watching on video, and I will talk through them through the audio. But yeah, a hugely successful Kickstarter campaign. Congratulations to Intrepid Studios. Masterfully done. I don't think it could get much better than this. And to kind of show you where this goes, as an MMORPG, Ashes of Creation is the number one top spot. No other MMORPG has raised as much. Actually, no one is really even close. As you can see, the closest is about $1 million away, and that was Camelot Unchained. I broke this down also. You look at the money per backer as well, and yes, you got it. Ashes of Creation is number one there too. Everyone just really seemed ready to go for this game, and it really showed in the amount they raised and the amount of backers there were. Now, I will point out they did not have the top number of backers. That actually goes to Star Citizen. But in terms of money, there is really no one else even close to Ashes of Creation. And that actually, taking that a step further, where do they fit in all of, in games in total? Well, they did very well there too. They actually are number 7 in video games, only surpassed by a handful of very well-known games that did extremely well. The thing that gets me here is, again, the amount per backer. Ashes of Creation just blows every one of these games out of the water too. I suspect a lot of that comes down to the game player, an MMORPG versus an RPG. But again, very well done. Some very, very good results, I think, from their Kickstarter. And I think they would agree as well, since there is literally no one else that has done better than them. So that kind of brings me to, why were they so successful? I looked at a lot of Kickstarters. I've participated in a lot of Kickstarters. And there are a few things that I do think stick out as far as, how can they be well run and what to sort of stay away from. Obviously, the very first thing you want is a unique game, a concept, an idea that is something that everyone is going to really want to be a part of. Obviously, Ashes of Creation has done that. They themselves say they're going to revolutionize MMORPGs. We'll see if that happens. We've had other folks say that as well, but I believe in them. You also, in talking about a successful Kickstarter, well, what's the one thing everyone looks at initially is the video. That needs to be really well done. Ideally, there would be gameplay with it. People will get really turned off if all you have is sort of artwork and ideas. You really need to have something to show them. So that is very crucial as well. And then as the Kickstarter is progressing, frequent updates, very strong contact between the development team and the backers. As you're doing these content updates or updating the Kickstarter, it would be great if you could also do this on Twitch or some other sort of live venue, or Discord, for example, for chat or audio. Another thing that I think is highly important from the beginning, you should probably have stretch goals that are interesting and attainable. To me, that's just going to bring more people in. Someone backs and they want to get these stretch goals because they sound so cool. And so, word of mouth really gets spread, and they want to see these stretch goals reached that benefit everyone. And actually, speaking of word of mouth, that also goes to before you start the Kickstarter. I think spending 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in there, letting everyone know it's coming, what you're going to be doing, sort of building up the hype. There are some programs you can use. I think Thunderclap is one of them. Intrepid Studios did not use that, as far as I'm aware. They didn't need it, clearly. The next thing that probably is more important than in all of the others would be your tiers. So what are the prices and what are you offering? So a very good variety in tiers and reward items, I think, are obviously incredibly important. And we'll talk a little bit about, I think, how Ashes of Creation was so successful later on, and actually why they should probably be modeled by other companies if they're going to, or studios, if they're going to bring a game to Kickstarter, and seeing, well, how was this done so well? When it comes to tiers, what I would say, again, having when I say variety, a lot of different tiers. So, at minimum, I would say 10, with more than, the majority actually being probably sub $500. You always want to have things spread out upwards to, 5 or 10,000, just for those high rollers who really want to get involved. But that's not where most of the money will come from. It's going to be $500 and below. And that is typical of all of the campaigns that I've reviewed and looked at. So you really want to spread out the wealth within $0 to $500 mark, and spread out a variety of rewards in that area as well. And when it comes to the rewards, the things that I think are highly important when it comes to a video game. So for me, actually breaking down access to the game. So, lowest tier, starting just with having the game, and then you break into alpha and beta. But I think another good tactic there that we've seen in a variety of campaigns is breaking alpha into 1, 2, or 3, beta into 1, 2, or 3, maybe adding in a pre-alpha. I think it's very, it's reasonable to put in cosmetic items and titles, things that people will use in the game. That is fair game, although I don't think as important necessarily as the access to the game. Two things that I don't think are very helpful, and from when I've looked through various different campaigns that have been run, I don't see as being helpful. Multiples of like beta keys, multiples of items. So, for $50, you get an extra key, or you get 2 more, some vanity items, or something you already had access to. So multiples of something that is already available in an earlier reward. Typically, I don't see that as bringing in a lot of extra backers. The other thing that typically does not get a lot of extra people are going to be adding monthly game time. So if you're a subscription-based service and you say, well, for $35, I'll give you 1 month game time. If you go up to $100, you're going to get 2 extra months of game time. Those things actually typically do not show huge shifts in numbers of backers or how much they pay to fund. Ashes of Creation is unique in that there is one instance in which that actually is completely the reverse. And I'll get to that a little bit later. You probably, if you paid attention to the campaign, you probably know where I'm getting at, or if you've talked to me before. There is one instance where game time becomes very important. And actually, I think it's the main reason, or one of 2 main reasons why Ashes of Creation finished where it did. So those are sort of the things that I think are highly important to a successful Kickstarter campaign. And that kind of brings me to, what did Ashes of Creation do? What did Intrepid Studios do to, again, have such a success in this? A lot of the older games, they're number 7 in total games. When you look at, and I can actually put the screen back up here real quick, although people listening on audio can't see it. When you look at the top 10 video games and you see where Ashes of Creation fits at number 7, a lot of these other games they come from companies that have already put out really good games, or they're not, the first, they're the second or third episode of the game, or they're well-known developers. The other thing that is striking here is that Ashes of Creation sort of, they have a good team behind them, but it's not like they put out anything else. They kind of came out of nowhere, and to have such a successful campaign, there has to be reasons behind that. And I think there clearly are. And it comes down to how they ran their campaign. Basically, everything I mentioned before they did. So they let people know ahead of time, let sort of the suspense build of when they were going live with their Kickstarter, let word of mouth sort of circle around. Their initial video was very well done. They had gameplay to start with. Now they obviously said this is pre-alpha footage, but hey, they have a game that they can go in and actually play and test. That's vitally important to getting people interested. Ashes of Creation itself is just a very interesting concept as well. A lot of what they plan to implement obviously plays a role in this. They had a lot of good a lot of good stretch goals, ones that people really wanted to see, and again, that were attainable. That continues to promote word of mouth, getting more people in. They were highly available. They did their updates very frequently, and they did them on Twitch multiple times a week. So live with their backers, their players, and they answered questions from those backers, questions they took from the forums, from Twitch viewers. They were very active in Discord. They took questions from there. So they were very active in the campaign with maintaining that contact that is so vital to getting people to backing you and backing higher because they believe in you and they trust you. So they did all of those things, and they did all of those things very, very, very well. They showed more gameplay as things sort of progressed further on. I think their last video before the Kickstarter ended, they actually had, I think, 4 of them in playing the game, showing us how this all works. So they did all of these things very well. But for me, where it really comes down, and I said this before, is, well, what do they offer? What tiers do they have? How many do they have? And what are they offering within those tiers? What is the incentive? What are the rewards to the backers? What is going to make them want to come in now rather than waiting for the game to be finished? And the next thing I'm going to put up, and I'm going to again describe it as well for people listening on audio, their pledge tiers. So they did this very well. There's a wide variety of tiers here. And when you look at them, the majority, 6 of them are all under $500. They kind of fit the plan perfectly. One other thing that they did, within those tiers, they are spaced out reasonably well. So there's not huge gaps in money. The reason that's important is it will offer incentive to people if they say, well, I'm pledging at, $100. What is $150 really? That's not a whole lot of extra money. Maybe I'll go up to the $150 mark and get something extra. When you're able to stratify those tiers within relative close range, it really provides incentive for people to keep going on up. And the other thing they did very well was the early bird specials. So each tier, not every tier, but I think 6 of the tiers started off with early bird specials. I think that was everything below at 500 or below. And I don't know if this was planned or if this was something they thought up on sort of at the moment. But as those early bird tiers filled up and were gone, they started adding more, and they added a lot more. I'm trying to remember exactly how much they added for their 400 tier. I'm going to actually get out my papers here and look, but they added, as each tier filled up, they continued to add more and more. And actually, for the Braver of Worlds tier, they added 7 early birds. And each time they added an early bird, they increased the amount or the cost just a little bit more. So that keeps people, again, interested in going up a little bit, because the jumps in prices are not necessarily huge. That also, by offering the term early bird and saying this is limited, it gives people more interested in buying. If they know that, well, this might not be here, if I don't get this, it's going to be gone. And if I want it later, I'm going to have to spend more money. That sort of encourages people to buy it then and there. There's actually, I think, a principle called scarcity principle is one of the things that drives that. You see it a lot of other places. So they were able to really do their tiers very well. And then that brings me to the rewards. So what do they offer within the rewards that saw this huge jump in funding? Clearly from you can see here from the picture I produced that they broke down their beta and alpha into 1 and 2. which again, I would totally do. Towards the later tiers, the more expensive, they added the things that you typically will see, to get to design something, a monster or an event or an item within the game. You can come tour the studio. That's pretty normal. You can go to the PAX. That's sometimes, I've seen that before as well. Go to the launch party. I think the highest tier, they even paid for you to go to the launch party. But really how they stratified the alpha and beta is really a big part of, I think, why they were so successful. You look at the founder tier, and that is where you first get into alpha 2. And it ranged from $125 to $150. And they got 15.8% of their money from that, from nearly 20% of their backers. And it's very kind of simple, as to me at least, as to why. I mentioned that they're, the 100 to 150. Oh, there's not a lot of difference. Well, what's the difference in the reward from 100 to 150? Well, you're going from being able to say, hey, I'm in beta at $100 to saying at 150, I'm in alpha. And again, gamers like the idea of getting earlier access. And there's not a huge jump in price. So I think that's why you see more percentage-wise, in the founder tier, you see 19.2% there of total backers, and the tier below it at $80 to $100, the Pioneer, which is beta 1, you see 18.6%. So you actually see a higher percentage in the Alpha 1, and I think it's again because of, the Alpha 2, which is the founder, and again that's just because of the proximity of price. Now, the thing that really sticks out here to me is the Braver of Worlds. So what did they offer there that caused this game to just absolutely explode? I mentioned before that typically when you look at games and on Kickstarter, MMORPGs, and they offer 1 month here, 2 months there, which Ashes of Creation did do, you don't see a huge jump because of game time. And that plays out in a lot, basically everything I've looked at. Crowfall's another example. They did the same thing. There wasn't a lot of difference. But let me go back to this. So what did they do? Well, at the Braver of Worlds, they offered lifetime subscription. And if you look there, that just blew up this tier. This is a $400 to $500 tier. This is not a cheap tier. Yet they had 15.2% of their backers at this tier. And this tier provided 41.2% of the total funding, $1,344,310 from this tier. You just don't see that typically. Well, why? Lifetime subscription. People saw that and they got to have that. Now that takes a requirement. You have to have some trust. You have to assume that they're going to, one, get the game done and released, and two, you're going to like it enough that you're going to keep playing, and that three, it's going to stay open for a long period of time. But that lifetime subscription, you look there, that is nearly half, almost half of their funds come from that tier. I don't think it's the Alpha 1. The Alpha 1 is there too. I really truthfully don't think that is why you have such a high amount. I think the Alpha 2 is legit from the previous tier I mentioned, but not Alpha 1. I think that's the lifetime subscription. I mentioned Crowfall before. I went back through some of the data that I have on that. And when you look through, they also had not nearly as big of a jump, but they had a jump in one of their tiers that offered, I think it was 5 years of VIP. Essentially lifetime, right? Now, many MMORPGs go longer. You have World of Warcraft's been around, 12 years. EverQuest for, 17 years, 18 years. I don't even remember. So you have games that have been around for a very long period of time. But, and again, I think, that's why you don't necessarily see as big of a jump in Crowfall, because it was just 5 years. But you did see a big jump at a price range that typically there's not a big jump. Sort of what we saw here. And I think that was brilliant. You're getting the funds from that. Now, obviously, it puts Intrepid Studios at an interesting position, because they're going to end up losing some money on that going forward. Well, losing potential earned income once players reach a certain amount. And they're not playing as a sub. Now, obviously, they hope to have millions of people playing this game. So, it's 3,000 or whatever it was. You have to add up the other tiers, like 3,100, 3,200, 3,200 people. Does that really dent their bottom line? No, not really. But if they're successful, but that is why you saw such the success. That you take that out, they still did very well. They still blew away their goal. They might not be number one necessarily. They have a good chance. But that is why. And that actually, I want to show something else as to, well, why is that so important? We don't tend to think of games longitudinally in terms of cost for subscriptions. One, because many of them don't have subscriptions anymore, but the games that we do, we just don't really think about it. I came up with something I want to put up here. Now, this is World of Warcraft. So as an example, World of Warcraft at the $15 per month subscription rate. I went through and looked at each expansion, how many months were in between the releases of each expansion, how many months in total, and then what does the cost end up being there. And if you had played vanilla World of Warcraft all the way through the release of Legion, you would have played a total of 137 months, and your cost would come out to a little over $2,000. Now that is estimating at $15 a month. Obviously, if you prepay 6 months or whatever, you get a discount. But even then, $2,000. And here we are with Ashes of Creation offering a lifetime subscription for $400. That's why so many people backed at that level. One thing they are going to do during June is leave open a store on their website. I don't know the full details, but to get the people that couldn't use Kickstarter for various reasons, usually payment. I think they're also going to offer the ability to upgrade. That, I hope, is on there. A lifetime subscription upgrade, because I think the more people see that and notice that and get the money for that, the more they will get because of that. I mean, that is, I looked at, when I started pouring through the data, that just stuck out. And it was like, wow, that is a data point that shouldn't be there. Why is it there? And I'm 99% sure it's because of the lifetime subscription. So to put it into perspective, how long would I have to play in order to recoup that? And that comes down to basically about 33 months. So if I played this game for 33 months, 34 months, I would, that game time that I'm not paying for pays for this tier. So essentially the tier pays for itself if you're playing during that time. And then from there on, you're in the plus. So there is a very, very strong reason for anyone who backs this game and can do so to buy that tier, because it does take in some assumptions that this game will be released, that it will be as good as we hope that they say, and that you'll enjoy it. But assuming all those things are true, it just makes sense to get this tier. If you're able to do it, because eventually it will pay for itself. So anyways, those are the big reasons I think, from when I looked through all of the data, as to why this thing was so successful. And really hats off, congratulations to Intrepid Studios. You ran a marvelous campaign. I mean, this really is one that I think people should look and model after. I thought Crowfall did very well also, but this was just really masterfully done. And I don't know who planned it. I don't know if anyone from Intrepid Studios will ever listen to this or watch this. If so, hi. I'd like to talk because I want to know who came up with this plan. It worked very well. And so again, congratulations. And from here, I think, we move into development, and hopefully we'll continue to hear the news coming out. I doubt it will be as fast as it was during Kickstarter. I mean, it was your head was spinning. It was so hard to keep up with everything. But as they progress, I'll keep recording. I'm sure there will be other things too. This has actually been kind of fun for me, so I might get into bringing forward some other Kickstarter things and kind of looking at analysis there. But again, congratulations to Intrepid Studios on a very, very, very historically successful Kickstarter campaign. And thanks again, everyone, for joining me on Nodes. I will see you next time.